I was driving home through the mountain pass, somewhere between Red Bluff and Shasta, when the storm really started to pick up. It was one of those roads that twists so tightly, you can't tell where the turns end and the fog begins. It was supposed to be a 4-hour trip back to my apartment, but my phone had lost signal an hour ago. No maps, no service, just the endless looping of the same road between walls of dark pine. That's when I saw him. A man standing on the shoulder, facing the direction I was coming from, just standing there, motionless, as the rain fell straight down around him. He looked ordinary. Mid-50s maybe, wearing a torn denim jacket, his hair plastered to his forehead. In one hand he held a crumpled white grocery bag that looked like it had been soaked through. I slowed down. I don't know why. Instinct, guilt, habit. I just knew the road was empty, and the sight of another person felt like relief. As my headlights hit him, he raised a hand. Not a full wave, more like a tired gesture. "You need a ride?" I called through the window. He nodded once, slow, no smile, no reaction at all, really. Just climbed in, dripping water onto the seat. The smell hit first, wet fabric, metal, and something faintly like rust. "Where are you headed?" I asked, glancing over. "Down the mountain," he said quietly. His voice had a dry rasp, like someone who hadn't spoken in days. I waited for him to say more, but he didn't. Just stared out the window, the plastic bag balanced in his lap. The wipers screeched again. We drove in silence for 10 minutes. The fog grew thicker, swallowing the edges of the road. My high beams hit nothing but gray. Every few seconds, I could see the man's reflection in the glass. Eyes fixed straight ahead, unmoving. Finally, he spoke. "You shouldn't drive this road after midnight." I tried to laugh it off. "Why is that?" He didn't answer. I looked at the clock, 12:43 a.m. My stomach dropped a little, though I didn't know why. Something about his tone wasn't casual. It was warning me. Outside, the rain started to fall harder, the drops sharp enough to sound like static. The man shifted slightly, adjusting the bag in his lap. That's when I noticed the bottom of it, the faint, dark drip trailing onto his jeans, then onto my floor mat. At first I thought it was rainwater, but it was too thick, too dark. I turned the heater off and leaned a little closer, pretending to look at the dashboard lights. The bag wasn't see-through anymore. It looked heavy. Whatever was inside it pressed against the thin plastic like something soft but solid. "Is everything okay?" I asked carefully. He looked at me for the first time since getting in. His eyes were pale gray, cloudy, like they hadn't focused in years. "Almost," he said softly. "Just pull over before the next tunnel." I hadn't seen any tunnels on the way up, but the road curved endlessly, so maybe I'd missed one. I swallowed hard. "Sure. How far is that?" He smiled, barely, but enough to make my skin crawl. "You'll see it soon." The sound of the rain filled the car again. He turned his head toward the window, muttering something I couldn't make out, words that sounded too quiet and rhythmic, like a prayer or a list. The GPS screen on my dash flickered, even though the phone had no signal. For a split second, I thought I saw something flash on it. Not a route, but coordinates. Then it went black. The fog outside turned silver in the headlights, so thick it looked like smoke. Then, out of nowhere, the road opened into a straight stretch, and there it was, a tunnel ahead, carved into the rock, lights flickering like dying fireflies. The man leaned forward in his seat. "Here," he said. Right before that. My hands tightened on the wheel. The bag was leaking faster now, a dark streak crawling across his shoes. Something inside it shifted. I eased off the gas as the tunnel came into view, long, dark, and glistening from the storm. My gut screamed not to stop, but the man's hand was already gripping the dashboard, trembling slightly. "Pull over here," he said. His tone had changed, more urgent now, almost pleading. There was a gravel shoulder just before the tunnel entrance. I guided the car over, tires crunching to a stop. The man sat completely still for several seconds, the bag resting against his knee. The sound of the rain hitting the roof filled every corner of the silence. Then he opened the door. "Wait," I started, but he'd already stepped out into the rain. He stood by the side of the road, head bowed, the plastic bag swinging gently in his hand. The red taillights painted him in a dull, ghostly glow. I leaned over, calling through the cracked window. "Do you need help?" "I can." "No one should drive this road after midnight," he repeated, louder this time. His voice echoed against the tunnel walls. That's when the road forgets who's alive. I didn't know what to say. I was shivering, from the cold or from the way he said it, I couldn't tell. Then he turned to look at me. His face, pale, rain-soaked, expressionless, and his eyes catching the brake lights just enough to glow faintly red. He held up the bag. Something inside moved. That was it. I threw the car into drive and pressed the accelerator. The tires slipped for a second, spitting gravel, before catching traction. The headlights flashed across him one last time, standing motionless in the downpour, the bag dripping dark liquid onto the ground. The second I entered the tunnel, the world went silent. No rain, no radio, no sound at all, just the echo of my tires on wet concrete. When I came out the other side, the road behind me was empty. No sign of him. No tunnel lights either, as if they'd gone out the moment I passed through. I drove for another hour without stopping, eyes burning from not blinking. When I finally saw the faint glow of a highway gas station, I nearly cried from relief. The attendant asked if I was okay. I must have looked half crazed, drenched hair, pale face, hands still shaking. I told him what happened, even showed him the GPS map. He frowned, then said there wasn't any tunnel on that stretch of road. Not for 50 miles in either direction. I didn't argue. I just asked if I could park for a few minutes to rest. When I stepped out to stretch, I saw something wedged behind the back seat, a crumpled plastic bag. I froze. It wasn't mine. It looked identical to the one he'd been carrying. The bottom was stained dark red, dried now into a sticky crust. Inside was a single item, a driver's license. My driver's license. Not a copy, not a fake. My actual license, the one that was still zipped inside my wallet. I dropped the bag instantly, stumbling backward. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. The attendant came over, asking if everything was okay, but I just shook my head and got back in the car. When I glanced at the rearview mirror, for half a second, I thought I saw him sitting in the back seat. No expression, just those pale gray eyes reflecting the neon light of the gas station sign. I spun around, nothing there, but my rear camera light blinked once. Later, when I checked the footage, I saw him again, clearer this time. He was sitting behind me, head tilted, whispering something I couldn't hear over the rain. Then, at the very end, the footage flickered, and his face turned toward the camera. That's when the feed cut out. The next morning, I went back through that same stretch of highway with the police. No tunnel, no gravel shoulder, just a solid wall of rock and a road sign that read, "Do not stop after dark. Road closed past mile marker 47. They searched the area, found nothing. No footprints, no bag, no sign of any man. But ever since that night, every time it rains, my car's dash camera turns on by itself. And sometimes, just before it shuts off again, it records a single frame of something behind me. A man with a torn jacket, holding a plastic bag. Story 2. The motel at exit 17. It was sometime after midnight when we realized we'd taken the wrong turn. Just me and my college buddy Mark, driving back from a camping trip in Arizona. The GPS was frozen, the rain was coming down in sheets, and the last gas station we'd passed was at least 30 miles back. We were both half asleep, our eyes stinging from the road glare. Then, through the fog, we saw it, a flickering red neon sign that said, "Motel, Vacancy." It sat off a narrow exit that didn't even look paved, barely visible between the trees. The sign hummed like an old refrigerator, glowing through the mist. We pulled off anyway. We were too tired to keep driving. The lot was half flooded, potholes filled with rainwater. A single row of rooms stretched along the edge of the property, each with a dim porch light buzzing with moths. Inside the front office, a bell sat on the counter beside a yellowed check-in logbook. Behind the desk, a man finally appeared. Tall, gray suit, face half hidden under the shadow of a visor. He didn't look up when we walked in, just said, "You boys are my only guests tonight." That line stuck with me for some reason. Maybe it was the way he said it, like he was warning us, not informing us. We signed our names, paid cash. Room 5. The key had one of those faded blue plastic tags that said Driftwood Motel. We joked about how every cheap motel in the US was named Driftwood, but honestly, we were just relieved to have a dry bed. When we stepped outside, the air smelled like old carpet and rain. Thunder rolled somewhere far behind the hills. The room itself was exactly what you'd expect. Beige curtains, humming mini fridge, floral bedspread that probably hadn't been washed since the 90s. Still, the water worked. The AC buzzed, and after hours of driving through nothing but black highway, that felt like heaven. We unpacked just enough to crash, shoes off, lights out, curtains closed. That's when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow taps against the door. At first, I thought it was just the pipes, maybe thunder shaking something loose. But then Mark whispered, "Did you hear that too?" We both froze. Another set of knocks, this time harder. Rain pattered on the window, but I could still make out the rhythm of the sound. Someone was definitely at our door. I grabbed my phone, no signal, of course. Mark got up, crept toward the peephole. After a long pause, he said, "There's nobody there." He opened the door halfway. Rain blew in, cold and sharp. The walkway outside was empty, the flickering porch light painting everything in that weird, washed-out orange color. But right in front of our door, in the puddle, were 2 wet footprints. Bare feet, leading away toward the edge of the lot. Mark shut the door fast, locked it twice. We both laughed nervously, trying to shake it off. Maybe some drunk guest wandering. Maybe a prank. Except, there weren't supposed to be any other guests. We left the lights on after that, too wired to sleep. Around 2:45 a.m., I started hearing something else. A faint creaking sound, like the door hinges moving slowly, opening and closing somewhere nearby. When I peeked through the curtains, I could see the room next door. Its door was swinging open on its own. There was no one there. Just the wind, or what I told myself was the wind, moving the soaked curtain inside that room. "Maybe the storm's messing with the locks," Mark said, but his voice sounded hollow, like even he didn't believe it. We decided to go tell the clerk, just to feel less crazy. The front office was only a few doors down, the sign still glowing faint red through the rain. But when we got there, the lights inside were off. No clerk, no sound. The check-in logbook was still open, our names the last ones written. Then we noticed something behind the counter, a second set of keys hanging on hooks. Every single tag said occupied, but the lot outside was empty. No other cars, no lights, no signs of life. That's when I started feeling this weird pressure in my ears, like when you're deep underwater. The air was too still, too heavy. We hurried back to our room, rain drenching us by the time we reached the door. When I went to grab the handle, it was already unlocked. I knew for a fact we'd locked it, twice. We stepped inside, and both stopped cold. Our bags were sitting on the floor, but the clothes inside had been unpacked, folded neatly, placed on the bed, like someone had been expecting us. Mark whispered, "You left this open?" I shook my head. Then the bathroom door creaked. We both turned toward it, waiting for something, anything to come out. But instead, the phone on the nightstand rang. A harsh, old rotary tone that made both of us jump. Mark grabbed the receiver, his face drained of color as soon as he heard the voice on the other end. It was his own voice. "Don't open it again." The line went dead. We didn't wait to test what it was. Mark grabbed the keys, I threw our stuff back in the bag, and we bolted into the rain. As soon as I looked back, I saw the door to our room still wide open, and the light flickering inside like something was moving in there. We didn't stop driving for what felt like hours. The wipers squeaked, the headlights cut thin lines through the rain, and the GPS kept blinking between no signal and recalculating. Neither of us said a word. I could still hear that phone ringing in my head. After a while, I noticed something strange. Every few miles, we passed the same billboard, half-ripped, showing a smiling family under the words, "Stay a while, exit 17 motel." At first, I thought maybe I was imagining it, but then I saw it again. Same bullet holes, same peeling corner flapping in the wind. We hadn't turned around, but somehow we were circling. "Dude, that's the same sign," Mark muttered. His voice was shaking. "Just keep driving," I said. We hit mile marker 16, then 17, then 18. No exit. The road just stretched on like an empty black ribbon through the desert. By 4 a.m., the rain slowed to a mist. Our gas light came on again. Mark finally pulled over near a rusted guardrail. "I'm done," he said. "We'll wait till morning." We sat there in silence, engine ticking. The fog was so thick it felt like it was pressing against the windows. That's when I noticed the glow in the distance. A soft red shimmer like a neon sign barely visible through the haze. It pulsed, then flickered out. "No way," Mark whispered. We looked at each other, and before either of us spoke, the radio, which had been dead all night, crackled to life. A man's voice came through the static. "Room 5, checkout time." Then the channel went dead again. I slammed the car into gear, spun it around, and drove the opposite direction, praying we'd find the highway again. But every turn looked identical. Same cracked pavement, same leaning road signs eaten by rust. Finally, as the first gray light of dawn crept through the clouds, the fog began to lift. We saw a sign up ahead. Exit 17, motel, 0.5 mi. Mark hit the brakes so hard the car fishtailed. The sign was new, reflective paint, clean bolts, no rust. We pulled over beside it, dumbfounded. There was nothing beyond the guardrail but desert emptiness. No buildings, no lights, just a barren field of dirt and scrub stretching to the horizon. No tire tracks, no footprints, just wind. We sat there until the sun broke fully through the clouds, orange light washing over the asphalt. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something white fluttering against the fence. I walked over. It was a piece of paper, soaked and torn. When I peeled it off the wire, I realized what it was: the check-in page from the motel's logbook. Our names still there, smeared by rain. Below them, 3 new entries. Same date, same handwriting. One read, "Vacant, filled." The second, "Guests returned." And the third, written faintly at the bottom, "Still here." I dropped it like it burned. When I looked back toward the car, Mark was staring past me, his face pale as chalk. Behind me, across the empty field, stood the faint silhouette of a building. Gray, distant, shimmering like heat on asphalt, just barely visible in the daylight. It was the motel. The same shape, the same crooked sign, only this time it wasn't there a moment ago. The wind picked up, carrying the faint sound of something metallic clanging, like a door knocker echoing far away. We didn't go closer, we just ran. By the time we reached the interstate, the sun was up, the sky bright blue, and the road signs were normal again. Exit 16. Exit 18. No 17. We flagged down a highway patrol car and told the officer everything, probably sounding insane. He listened quietly, then said, "Son, there's no motel anywhere near that stretch. Closest one closed back in '98. He showed us a laminated list of service stops. Exit 17 wasn't on it. When we insisted, he pulled up an old database on his tablet. Driftwood Motel. Condemned after a double homicide in 1999. 2 college travelers, never identified. Bodies never recovered. Mark stared at me for a long time after that. Neither of us spoke the rest of the drive home. That was 6 years ago. Sometimes I dream I'm back on that road. The rain, the lights, the red glow flickering just beyond the fog. And every time I fill up my car at night, I still glance at the pump handle, half expecting to see a reflection behind me. We thought it was just another cheap stop on a long road trip. But maybe some exits never lead back. Maybe they lead somewhere you don't come back from. Story 3. The gas station that wasn't there. We'd been driving for almost 10 hours straight. Just 2 of us, me and Jordan, heading home from a music festival in California. It was somewhere past midnight when the desert started to feel endless. The sky had no stars. The radio kept slipping between frequencies, nothing but white noise and distant AM chatter, and the gas gauge needle was sinking toward empty. We hadn't seen a single car for miles, just black asphalt stretching into nothing and the faint glow of dust in the headlights. Jordan tapped the GPS on his phone. "There's a station about 5 miles ahead," he said. "Silver Springs Gas." I didn't remember seeing it on the map before, but I didn't care. We were nearly out of gas, and anything was better than being stranded in the middle of nowhere. As we rounded a bend, a pale blue glow appeared ahead, a flickering sign, half burned out, letters buzzing, SLVRSRNGS. The place looked like it had been frozen in time. 2 pumps under a corrugated metal awning, a dusty icebox by the door. And the smell, old gasoline, desert sand, and something faintly sweet like burnt sugar. I pulled up beside the first pump and killed the engine. The only sound left was the wind whistling through the broken sign. Inside, the lights flickered. Shelves stood half empty. Dusty cans of beans, expired candy bars, bottles of motor oil coated in grime. The air felt stale, thick, and behind the counter stood a man. He was tall, wearing a faded blue uniform, cap tilted forward so I couldn't see his eyes. He didn't say a word, didn't move, just stared. "Hey man, we're low on gas," Jordan said. "Pump still work?" No response. The only movement was the reflection of the flickering fluorescent light in the glass of the fridge behind him. We exchanged a quick look. Nervous, uncertain, then decided to just leave a 20 on the counter. "Thanks," Jordan muttered, voice trailing off. Still nothing. Outside, the pump clicked and hissed. The nozzle felt heavier than it should have, like the air itself was pressing down. When the tank was full, I looked up. The windows of the store were pitch black now. The man behind the counter was gone. Jordan stood frozen, one hand on the car door. "Wasn't he?" "Yeah," I said, cutting him off. "Let's go." I started the engine. The headlights cast 2 long beams across the cracked parking lot, but as we rolled away, I glanced in the side mirror. And for a second, I swear I saw the man standing at the edge of the lot. Completely still, watching. We drove in silence for a long time. The glow of the gas station faded behind us, swallowed by the desert. After maybe 20 minutes, Jordan checked the GPS again. The screen showed nothing, just a blank stretch of highway. No road markers, no gas icon, just gray emptiness. He refreshed the map twice, still blank. "That's weird," he whispered. "Maybe bad signal," I said. But deep down, I knew the signal wasn't the problem. A few minutes later, the radio crackled back to life. Static at first, then a faint voice through the noise. "You shouldn't have stopped there." We both froze. Jordan turned the volume down. The voice faded, replaced by a high-pitched whine. "Did you?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "I heard it." We didn't speak after that. The road stretched on for another hour before we saw lights, flashing red and blue. A police cruiser parked at a small diner on the roadside. We pulled over. I jumped out and ran to the officer, who was leaning against his car, sipping coffee. "Officer, there's a gas station about 30 minutes back. Something's wrong there." "The cashier," he frowned. "Silver Springs?" I nodded, relieved. "Yeah, that's the one." He looked at me for a long second before setting his coffee down. "Son, Silver Springs burned down in 2008. 2 people died in that robbery. There hasn't been a station there since." I laughed, nervous, disbelieving. "No, we were just there. We bought gas." He didn't smile, just shook his head slowly. "You sure you weren't seeing things? Happens out here sometimes. Long drives, empty roads." Jordan got out of the car, still holding the receipt we'd found by the pump. It was blank, no ink. We got back in the car. Neither of us said much, but the longer we drove, the heavier the silence became. The gas gauge hadn't moved, still full, even after 60 miles. Jordan noticed first. "Dude, we've been driving for an hour." "Yeah, the tank's still full." I glanced down, and my stomach dropped. The gauge needle was frozen dead center, not moving at all. And then, from the back seat, I heard the faint sound of movement, leather creaking, like someone shifting their weight. I turned slowly. Nothing, just the back seat, empty. The blanket, the cooler, but in the rearview mirror, for a split second, I saw him, the cashier, sitting perfectly still in the back seat, cap pulled low, watching us. I blinked, and he was gone. Before I could respond, I said quietly, "Jordan whispered, he's standing behind the car." I didn't look back, didn't want to. I just hit the gas. The tires screeched, the car lurched forward into the blackness. And as we sped down that empty road, the radio crackled one last time. "Full tank," the voice said. "Drive safe." We didn't stop driving until the sky started to turn gray. The sun hadn't fully risen, just that thin, pale light creeping over the desert horizon. Neither of us spoke. Not until we reached the edge of a small town called Fairmont, where a real gas station stood, bright and modern. Digital pumps, convenience store open, cars parked outside. Normal. Alive. We both got out, hands shaking. Jordan walked straight to the bathroom without saying a word. I went inside to pay, desperate for something. Human noise, the smell of coffee, the fluorescent hum of an ordinary morning. The cashier was an older woman with gray hair tied up in a bun. She looked up as I walked in, eyes scanning me for a second too long. "Long drive?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. We stopped at a place called Silver Springs, about an hour back." Her hand froze on the counter. The smile dropped instantly. "Honey," she said softly, "there hasn't been gas in Silver Springs for years." I tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out broken. "No, really. It was open. Lights on, we filled up." She shook her head slowly. "That's the old Jensen place. Closed after the murder. They say the man who owned it never left." When we got back on the road, Jordan was pale. He hadn't said a word since he came out of the bathroom. After a few miles, he finally spoke. "You know what's weird?" "Everything?" I said. "No." I checked the receipt again, in the bathroom. He pulled it from his pocket. It wasn't blank anymore. This time, faint numbers had appeared, burned into the paper like heat marks. Dolls. That was the same time the station lights had flickered out. "I think," he whispered, "we shouldn't have paid cash." The air inside the car felt heavier. The dashboard lights flickered, once, then steadied. I turned off the radio, but the static didn't stop. It was coming from somewhere else, from the car itself. Then a faint ding, like the seatbelt alert, echoed through the cabin. Only, both of us were buckled in. A few minutes later, the temperature dropped again. Desert air shouldn't feel cold, but I could see my breath. Jordan reached to turn on the heater, and that's when we heard it, a soft click from the back seat. We both turned. The seatbelt on the passenger side rear seat had fastened itself. The buckle slid slowly across the fabric and locked. The buckle slid slowly across the fabric and locked. Then the overhead light flickered, and in that dim pulse of yellow, the reflection in the rearview mirror shifted. For just a second, I saw him again. The man from the station, cap pulled low, eyes hidden, sitting calmly in the back seat as if he'd been there the whole drive. I hit the brakes, hard. The car screeched, skidding sideways across the asphalt. We came to a stop on the shoulder, dust swirling in the headlights. When we turned around, nothing. The back seat was empty, seatbelt unbuckled, but on the window behind me, fog had formed, and written in it, backward from the inside, "Full tank." I stared at it until my hands started shaking. Jordan whispered, "We didn't pay for that gas." We ditched the car 10 miles later in Fairmont. Left the keys on the seat, doors unlocked, everything. Neither of us wanted to touch it again. A tow service took it 2 days later. They called me about something strange. "Tank's still full," the mechanic said. We ran the engine for hours. Gauge never moved. He paused, then added quietly, "And there's a handprint on the inside of the gas cap, like someone pushed out from the tank." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that flickering sign, the silent man at the counter, the way the lights just died when we left. So I looked it up. Silver Springs Gas, Nevada. I found a newspaper article from 2008. The owner, Daniel Jensen, had been murdered during a robbery gone wrong. 2 drifters. He'd been shot behind the counter, and both robbers burned with the building when the gas ignited. The article said the bodies were never recovered. Only Jensen's watch, found melted to the countertop, and the time it stopped. Weeks passed. I got a new car, different route home. But sometimes, when I drive through open desert at night, I still see it, that pale blue glow in the distance. A flicker on the horizon that wasn't there before. Once, I even slowed down, just a little, and for half a second, the radio turned on by itself, static. Then a voice, soft and distorted. "Full tank, keep driving. I don't stop anymore. Not for lights, not for signs, not for gas stations that shouldn't exist." That was one of several true highway encounters submitted by listeners who drove a little too far into the dark. If you've ever seen something that shouldn't be there, or stopped somewhere that isn't on any map, you know how it feels. Stay safe out there. And whatever you do, don't stop for the flickering sign. Every story tonight started the same way. A long stretch of road, a quiet night, and that familiar feeling that you're completely alone. But maybe that's the trick. Maybe we're never really alone out there. Ethan thought he was stopping at a forgotten gas station. Melissa only wanted to help a man caught in the rain. And Brandon? He just needed a place to sleep before sunrise. Different roads, different nights, but they all ended the same, with something waiting just beyond the headlights. There's something about the open highway that hides things we're not supposed to see. Places that shouldn't exist, people who shouldn't still be walking, and moments that somehow keep looping back. Because when the world gets that quiet, when it's just your tires on the pavement and the yellow lines flicking by like a heartbeat, you start to notice things. A figure by the guardrail, a shape in your mirror that wasn't there before, a voice on the radio whispering your name. So the next time you find yourself driving after midnight and you see a light in the distance that shouldn't be there, don't stop, don't look back, and whatever you do, don't open the door. Because out there, on those dark stretches of road, some exits never existed, and some passengers never left. Stay safe, travelers. And until next time, watch the rear view.